He had never read a book in his life except for the holy book of God. Yet deep in his heart, he harbored a shy reverence for books. Whenever he passed by the makeshift stalls selling used books in front of the Ars commercial complex, his eyes lingered on their titles. But he resisted, seeking refuge in God as if their contents were whispers of the devil. His entire knowledge stemmed from the Friday sermons of imams. There is no era more glorious than the time of the Prophet Abu Bakr and Umar, he would exclaim whenever he debated someone. He was sincere in his prayers, devout in his bowing and prostration. He prayed in every mosque in the city, as if wagering on multiplying his rewards in the hereafter. He had never touched a woman other than his wife, whom he had compelled to wear the veil even before consummating their marriage. No funeral took place in the city's cemetery without his presence at the prayer, heralding God's mercy and warning those around him of the Almighty's wrath. He was not prone to despair, but like all of God's creation, he sometimes felt life closing in on him. When that happened, he sought solace in his Lord, setting out on foot from his home in the El Khorz district to the village of El Borj, reciting from memory the sacred verses of the Quran as he walked back and forth. Why then would a man so gentle, so kind-hearted, be struck by one calamity after another? Wrongfully accused of distributing terrorist leaflets calling for bloodshed in the name of a caliphate, he was imprisoned for a month. Though eventually exonerated, he emerged to find himself shunned by everyone as if he were Judas Iscariot betraying Jesus Christ. Then came the most crushing blow, his wife's betrayal. The police raided the home of a friend who had often welcomed him and treated him with kindness, acting on a tip-off about an illicit affair. But the woman at the heart of the scandal turned out to be his own wife, who had been unfaithful since the beginning of their marriage. Forced to undergo medical tests, he suffered yet another blow. None of his 3 children were his own. It was too much to bear. Rage and grief overwhelmed him, and he collapsed unconscious. When he awoke in a hospital room, he learned he had developed type 2 diabetes. Tears streamed down his face as he pleaded with his Lord, sobbing, begging for mercy. He had feared God's wrath his entire life, but now he could not understand why this was happening to him. And then came the final strike, the official notification of his dismissal from work. Now he had no job, no money, no children, nothing. That night, he curled up in a corner of his house, writhing in pain, questioning the Creator. Has my whole life, O Lord of the heavens, been for nothing? Have I not lived by your sacred rope? Do you not reward sincerity? Is everything that has happened to me merely fate inscribed in the preserved tablet? No answer, no sign. He picked up a loose thread from his worn-out garment, twisting it between his fingers as he drifted into the abyss of nothingness, questioning himself, his life, God, people, and the universe. He longed for only one thing now: peace. The thought of driving a dagger into his chest crossed his mind, but the idea disgusted him. Suicide reeked of cowardice. If it must end, let it be in a place of my choosing. At dawn, his feet seemed to move on their own, carrying him to the bus station. The vehicle was packed, passengers jostling like fleas, their sour breath mingling with the stench of unwashed clothes. It didn't matter. Soon he would be free. His destination, Akulmam Azegza Lake, the only place in the world he truly loved. As the lake came into view, his stomach twisted. The thought struck him, didn't they say the lake devoured strangers? He recalled the madman from his neighborhood who often muttered, "Never trust Atika." When asked who Atika was, he would reply, "Life, my friend. Atika is life." The memory made him smile. For the first time in days, he listened to his own heartbeat. As he stepped off the bus, a cold wind greeted him, carrying the scent of cedar and the distant crowing of roosters. He stood still for a moment, gazing at the lake, which seemed larger than he remembered. A strange, unfamiliar dread washed over him. The sky was a deep, intense blue, and a faint crescent moon still hung in its center. Something stirred within him. Questions flooded his mind. Is it the fear of death? The fear of divine punishment for dying by my own hand? Or is it, despite everything, the love of life? I won't turn back. I have nothing left to live for. Perhaps the angels of mercy will spare me out of compassion. They are, after all, angels. One step, and he would find eternal peace. No one was around, save for a group of young women on the far shore, filling rubber water skins. Salvation was within reach. As he moved toward the water, an urgent need to relieve himself made him pause. He turned and climbed toward the forest, seeking privacy. As he searched for a tree trunk to lean against, his eyes fell upon a lush jacaranda tree, its violet blossoms standing out like a sprig of thyme in a bouquet of mint. He recalled hearing on the radio that Judas, after betraying Jesus, had hanged himself from the branch of a jacaranda. Out of spite for both Judas and the tree that had borne his weight, he chose to urinate on its trunk. Just then, a sudden gust of wind swirled through the trees, sending droplets of his own urine back onto his clothes and hands. He tried to stop the stream, but it was too late. Instinctively, he looked around. A Barbary macaque sat on a nearby cedar branch, staring at him with a mix of solemnity and disdain, as if he were the monkey and not the monkey itself. A wild burst of laughter erupted from deep within him, shaking his entire being. The surrounding mountains echoed with his mirth. He no longer resisted nature, he surrendered to it. As he finished relieving himself, the wind continued to anoint him in his own urine, as if baptizing him anew. He adjusted his clothes and looked up at the sky, vast, endless, embracing all human failures. The crescent moon was now just a thin, pale sliver, like the curve of a fingernail. A sweet tranquility settled over him, as if some benevolent force had drawn out all the filth and sorrow from within him. He made his way back to the lake, no longer seeking an end, only a moment of stillness. He washed his hands, splashed water over his soiled clothes, as if performing ablution. Never in his life had he felt so light. Lifting his gaze to the sky once more, he thought, a crescent needs time to become a full moon. That evening, he would buy the novel with the giant whale on the cover, the one he had always glanced at outside the Ars complex. What was its name again? Ah, yes, Moby Dick.